Okay, I need to open a slot in the servo bay for the linkage, and I measured from the root to the center of the slot and it was 41 millimeters. I don't know if this will stay the same on production models. It probably will, but same technique. And then I just transferred that from here to here, 41 millimeters. And I'm going to use a Dremel tool with this 1 millimeter kind of grinding bit on it and try to open up the slot. Just open it up a little bit, and I'm gonna kind of finish it off with this flat pointy file. I'm not gonna go too crazy with this. I'm just kind of removing the carbon. You don't want to damage the top skin at all. So don't get the tip of this too far in there, because you're going at a down angle and you could punch through the top skin or dent it out. Kind of gonna go up almost all the way to the bottom skin here. And then go down, and I'm about a couple millimeters off the top skin. I'm going to leave it right there for now, and then I'm going to come through this pre-cut slot. Now this slot, can you see that? This one here, it was a little narrow for these 1.5 millimeter rods I'm using. I had these here, they didn't come with the kit, so your kit might come with thinner rods. These are kind of overkill, but I just opened up the slot with the same file, just a few swipes, and it was fine. So I'm just going to push this through and see if we get to that slot we cut, and I think it already went through, so let's see. Yep, already went through. I'm just going to kind of push down on this a little bit. So now what I'm going to do is, again, I'm going to take this same file and stick this in here a little bit. Just getting rid of a little bit of the foam. Not much. Same thing here. It's kind of just a back and forth process. Stick it through. Again, I'm going to kind of push down. Kind of crunch some of that foam away. Kind of see now how it moves up and down a little bit. That's what you want to see. It's looking good. And then I'm going to try to just get a little more of this closer to the top skin. Okay, I know you can't see that, but you get the point. And now we'll start looking at the horns. Okay, I was originally going to measure over from this bolt hole to the slot on the top of the wing to get a measurement to cut the slot in the servo bay here, but actually I just measured from the cutout of the aileron, so this cut here, and I measured over, and then it ended up being 41, so the same measurement as the other side of the wing. So again, just measured from the cut here, 41, and then used a square and measured out to cut the slot in the servo bay. So I have the horn in place, and the aileron is taped up, and what I'm going to do now is just mark the rod for an L bend that we have to make. So my servo's in place, and the servo horn is biased towards the leading edge slightly, about I don't know, 10 or 15 degrees or something. And now I'm gonna try to mark this. That looks good. See that Sharpie mark? And then I'm just going to pull that out and make an L bend there at that mark. Okay, I have everything basically dry fit. The horn is in place. There's no glue on it yet. And servo's in place. Again, it's not glued in. So the first thing I'm going to do is pull the horn out. Actually, I take that back. I'm going to leave that in and pull the servo out. And I've also sanded the servo bay. So now I'll pull the horn out and kind of put it out of the way, and I'm going to put some epoxy. This is 3-hour epoxy with a little bit of Cabosil, so I'm just going to try to fill this slot up. And I've also sanded the servo horn, or not the servo horn, sorry, the control horn, for better adhesion. So I want enough in here to have it sort of ooze out when I put the horn in. That should be good. I always keep a rag with some rubbing alcohol on it just to wipe my fingers down and anything else down if I mess up a little bit. So now I'm gonna try to put the horn in here. And then we'll come back to that, but we'll flip this guy over and we'll try to get some epoxy in that servo bay. Sorry about that, I had to take care of something. So I have some epoxy spread out in the servo bay, and I'm just going to push my servo in And try to get the arm on. Takes a little bit of fiddling. There we go. That's looking good there. We're gonna put some weight on that later. But first, we're gonna come back to the horn here. And see. Actually, what I'm going to do is plug the servo into a tester. Try to get it somewhat centered. There we go. Turn it off. I'm going to tape up. I'm going to tape the aileron so it's fixed. Again, we're going to put weight on that. Come back to here, kind of make sure it's seated, feels pretty good. And then I'm going to... Oh, actually, first thing, sorry. I'm going to take a Q-tip and just sort of wipe excess epoxy that's oozed up a little bit. Then I'm going to come back and use some tape. About 2 pieces will be fine. Just to kind of keep the horn down. Like that. And now, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to take a piece of old ballast and just put it on top like that. And just let it cure. And we'll let that sit overnight. I did do the other wing already, so we'll let both the wings cure overnight. As you can see right here, I got the other servo done. And that'll kind of wrap up the servo installation. Then we're going to have to work on servo covers and some of the wiring and a few other little bits and pieces. But for now, we'll just let this cure. Okay, I'm kind of still waiting for these horns to dry. They're pretty much cured, but the resin's still a little soft, so I need a couple more hours. But in the meantime, I'm going to work on some of the wiring. So I need to put a hole in here for the wire, and it's going to attach to this servo end here. So to help me with that, I have a loose connector, servo connector. I'm just going to push it in like that, and I'm going to put some silver ink on the back and then push the wings together, and hopefully that will give me a good indication of where I need to cut. So I have my silver pen here, and I'm just gonna try to get some ink on this guy. Hopefully it'll be wet, it'll stay wet. And then take the other half, put it together. Hopefully some of that will transfer. And actually, I think I can just get in here and trace a line. See how that works. A little messy, but it's there. I can make it out. So I'm just going to cut that out now. I will use a Dremel with a grinding bit just to open it up, and then I'll finish it off with a file. So there's a slot, and then let me get my favorite flat file, and I'll just start opening it up a little bit. So let me do this and I'll show you what the finished product is. Okay, I taped up sort of the excess here and I have the connector coming out. So let's see how this is going to go together. Well, let me pull this plug out first. So the idea is you kind of get it started and then get the connector in. Like that. Works pretty good. So happy with that, so we can leave that the way it is. And now I have to hook up these two wires, and I don't really want to just solder them together, so I don't know if I have room in here to stuff a connector, so let me think about this for a while. Okay, I'm going to use like standard servo connector parts on this wire here. I've stripped back the wire already, but I'm going to try to modify the plugs. I don't have any room in that servo bay, so I'm going to actually cut off like 3 millimeters of the back of the plug. And I'll have to also cut off the same amount on these connectors. So I might end up just soldering the wire to these, because I don't think the crimps will work anymore. But we'll see how it goes. Let me take one and I'm just going to clip off this back portion here. And I'll try to crimp this. I don't think it'll be enough to get a good crimp. Try one and see how it goes. It might work, and I might end up putting a little dab of solder on there too, just in case. Actually, let me get a little more wire off this one. It kind of worked. I think I will put a little bit of solder on it too. So let me finish this up. Okay, this actually worked out pretty good. So I cut those metal parts down like I showed you, and I've cut this connector way down. So if we compare it to the size of normal connector, you see how much I cut off there? And the pins didn't really want to lock in, so I put some CA on the top there and some rubberized CA on the back. So we should be able to get this connected. Like that, and then we have enough room to stuff it in the bay and probably just barely be able to squeeze some of this wire in here and get it all tucked away. And I might put a bit of electrical tape on this back side where these wires are going to smash against the servo bay, because I don't want this to short out on the carbon. It probably won't, I probably don't need to, but I'll just do it as a precaution. Wow, well, it was a bit of a chore to get all that wire stuffed in there, but I managed to do it. You can see the connectors in there, and there's no way that's coming apart. And then I just stuffed the excess wire in there. And so that's ready for some sort of a cover. And I don't even remember if this came with a cover, but I'll check. So the next thing I have to do is make up a little harness for the fuselage side. So he did give me the other side of the Dean's connector, and then I just have to solder on two servo leads to that. Gonna make the little fuselage side harness. So I've plugged the other Dean's connector into the wing, and then I have some servo connector ends here and a bit of 28 gauge wire we're gonna use. And we're gonna need probably, I would say about 100 millimeters in length. Actually, the connector is going to go about here. So yeah, probably 100 if I'm using this receiver. Unless I want to put it in backwards like this, which I might want to do. Actually, let me see. No, I'll probably put it forwards. So, assuming we're starting from here, and we're going to go to about here. Yeah, maybe 90 millimeters. We'll do 90. So let's get started on that. I made up some pigtails with those servo ends, so I have two. And then I've stripped back the wire on the other ends, and I'm going to solder them on that Dean's connector right there. So I'll put a little bit of flux on the pins. And I have this little piece of cardboard here just to protect the wing from any solder that might splash. I've put some flux on the wire ends as well. So let me get some of this stuff tinned up. So I'll start with the negative. I've tinned up both ends. Need a piece of shrink tubing. Stuff's kind of hard to do with the camera sitting here. but we'll do our best. I think I'm going to put a little more flux on there. Looks pretty good. Looks good. And we gotta tie our reds together. So we'll put a piece of heat shrink tubing over both. Actually, this one needs to pull through. Okay. One. I think I gotta redo that. I don't like the way that came out. This one just doesn't want to cooperate. Just need to get a little more. Ugh. There we go. All right, now I'll just go ahead and disconnect this, and we can get the shrink tubing done up. Finished pigtail or fuselage wire harness. I've also just put a little bit of black CA on this, just as a little bit of extra insurance in case I try to tug on the wires instead of the connector. And let's just see how this fits. Pretty good, pretty tight, as is typical with 4-pins Deans. So that finishes that, and if we look at the fuselage, this guy will sit something like this. I'll probably route these wires underneath here. Next thing we'll go on to is trying to get some servo covers on here. My horns do protrude a little bit. I really need a cover with a really tiny bump. These are way too big. It's kind of all I had. So I'm going to think about this and see if I can come up with some kind of clever solution. Alright, I found some scrap plastic servo covers, and I'm going to basically cut out a piece to make a plastic cover, and I'm going to cut a little slot in it for clearance for the horn, And I may use this plastic or transfer it over to a piece of carbon fiber. I don't know yet. So I did up one of the plastic servo covers. And you can see the little slot I cut in there. I was thinking of transferring this to a piece of carbon, but I actually kind of like the way this looks, so I think I'm just going to leave it. And I may or may not just put a piece of black tape over the slot because the horn is barely sticking up. We'll see how it goes. I probably won't. So I cut up another one for this side here. So all I gotta do is stick it on and tape it down. And sometimes I use double-sided tape, but in this case I'm just using some really thin Kapton tape. It works really well. No magic to it here. You just stick it on, you know. And then just cut off the excess. And just go around and get all four sides. I cut it real long just so I can grab onto the excess. And then just trim it with some scissors. So there we go. You can see how much of the arm sticks up. Really would like to get some servo covers with just really shallow bumps on them, but I don't have any. And of course we have the pigtail here. So this pretty much wraps up the wing. We have the servos in. We have the control horns and linkages installed. We did up the little pigtail. Not much else to do. I think I'm going to wrap this one up here. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and I look forward to seeing you in part 3.